Hello and welcome back to the Halfway Point. This week we're doing something a little bit different. This week we're currently away at a PM away weekend, and I'm joined by the lovely Jennie Dock, who is an experienced practice manager and who kindly organises these events for us. So we're just going to have a chat about what these entail and what kind of happens over these weekends. Before we start, I want to make a big shout out to Dean Healthcare, who's kindly sponsored this weekend for us, which has helped keep the costs down immensely. So we're incredibly grateful for that. So looking into what is the PM weekend and how it works, I'll hand over to Jennie to explain a sense how it came about and what the weekend entails.
Thanks, Ben. It kind of started a few years ago when a local PM and myself got some funding from NHS England to do something with Practice Manager Resilience. The first one we did was just one day away, and we went to, I think it was a hotel. We were in one of the conference rooms, and we just spent the day just downloading, really, supporting each other. I think we had a facilitator there who helped guide the day, and it was just really a chance to have a bit of a safe space where we could feel supported amongst colleagues. It worked really well, and what I wanted to do after that was to expand it a little bit. I wanted to keep the really informal feel. I wanted to make it an overnight, because although that first one we knew each other relatively well because we worked in the same PCN or neighbouring PCNs, I wanted to give the group a chance to bond. So what we started doing was going away on the Friday evening, having kind of quite a chill evening on the Friday. What we normally do is do some board games, have a takeout, have a few drinks, maybe a few too many sometimes, but there we go. And then on the Saturday, we tend to do work stuff during the day. So that might be investing in ourselves for work stuff. It might be learning a new skill. It might be sharing experience of something like CQC. Then on the Saturday evening, I'm a bit of an escape room fanatic. So we do tend to do escape rooms and then go out for dinner or have a few drinks and then depart on the Sunday morning. So it's quite a jam-packed weekend, but it's quite laid back. So I think we've been doing this about, I don't know, is it 4, 5, 6 years maybe? It tends to be the same group of people at the moment, but it's something I'd like to kind of propagate elsewhere in the UK. It's been so valuable for us as a group, for our development, for our resilience, that I think other practice managers could benefit from it too.
So Jennie, you talked about an Airbnb then. So kind of why an Airbnb as opposed to say like a hotel or a conference room?
So as I said, we started in a hotel and it felt quite corporate. You know, there were other people around us, but there wasn't really, it didn't have that relaxed feel. So the next time we did it, we hired an Airbnb. I think it was just a big house with lots of rooms. One of the really important things that I think works well is everyone having their own bedroom. So, you know, the idea is that although we might have 20 beds in the house, if there's only 10 bedrooms, we have 10 people there. The one we're away at this weekend is actually a group of 4 cottages. There are 11 bedrooms. There's actually only 7 of us on this one because a couple of people couldn't make it. But normally we'd have a room each, a bit of a safe space. You know, you can lock your door overnight, you can go to bed if, you know, you're not feeling the vibe, if maybe had a few too many drinks, or, you know, you didn't sleep well. You have got your own space to go to, but then you've got this nice communal area where you can have meals together, you can do the work stuff, and you can just relax and just feel a bit more at home than maybe you would in a hotel.
Looking into the activities and the day on the Saturday then, so you talked about kind of working through some resilience-based activities. What kind of activities do you do, and why does this really matter, especially for practice managers?
So one of the things I really wanted to do was to keep costs down for this. And as Ben mentioned earlier, we've had a sponsor for this weekend. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Tom and team, for that. We've all really appreciated having that. So in order to keep the costs down, we try to do the themes, the talks, the topics internally. So we have had facilitators, we have had guest speakers. We, you know, I would consider doing that again in the future, depending on, you know, who's coming, what the kind of themes of the time that we're in, you know, whether there's something politically that we would benefit from looking at, or, some changes to the way practice managers work, or, some particular pressure in the area. But one of the things that I think works really well, both in terms of keeping costs down, but also I think it gives the people coming a bit of confidence themselves as well to be able to present a topic. So we've had all sorts of talks, information on CQC inspections. So if a practice has had a CQC inspection recently, they'll share their learning from it. Ben's done some talks for us, particularly around AI and digital. I've done some stuff with stress management, resilience. We've had a brilliant practice manager who's done a yoga session for us. We've had Ed's done a session on working with pharma. You don't have to be an expert in the subject. It's just something you're passionate about. It's a really safe space to kind of try out things on people. So obviously Ben does a lot of talks in other locations to much bigger groups, and sometimes we're guinea pigs for it, which is great. We get the benefit of his knowledge and his experience, and he gets the benefit of us saying, hang on, doesn't it work like this, or have you thought about this? And he can kind of get all the awkward questions out the way with us. It's quite organic normally, so although we do have a kind of agenda, we're not too hung up on sticking to it. If the discussion's flowing, we just go with it. We try to build in breaks, obviously, because it can be quite intense sometimes. There's quite a lot of navel gazing. I try to include a bit of a boost. So the last one we did, we went round the table and we made everyone squirm. So what we did was we gave all the positive stuff, the really good stuff, the inspirational stuff about that individual. We put it into a word cloud, and I sent a copy of it to each of the participants, and a couple of my colleagues actually have it up on their wall at work or on their screensaver. We've done something similar again this year. I mean, it does make you squirm a little bit, but also really gives you a boost. It makes you realise what you mean to people, the impact you've had on people's careers, on people's lives. It's a nice part of the weekend, because it's something to take away as well and look at and think, oh yeah, I had not only had a good weekend that weekend, but also, I got a lot out of it because I found out actually what people feel about me. So yeah, there's a whole lot of different things in there. I'm actually open to any suggestions. So, if someone comes along and says, I'm really good at this, I'd be like, yeah, give it a go. I mean, I have to say, when the practice manager said she'd like to do some yoga, I was like, or meditation, I was like, what to do about that? It's not really my thing, but you give it a go, and you do get stuff from it. So it anything goes, really.
That's brilliant. And looking at, so we go away on a Saturday, and we talked about going to these lovely cottages. Why does it work going on a Saturday and going out of the practice? So, on a Saturday we could go to a practice which is closed. Why is it important to kind of step away from the practice and go somewhere completely outside?
Oh, I don't think I have to tell any practice manager that if you do stuff in the practice, you're going to be interrupted. So it is important to be away from the practice, not have those pressures, not have the I'm just going to go and check on this. I think you let your guard down a bit more when you're in a kind of a home situation rather than you are at work. I mean, certainly I wear a different hat at work than I do at home, and probably a different hat as well when I'm on these weekends. Much more relaxed myself as a person, and actually I think that builds over the weekend as well. Obviously alcohol helps, although it's not essential, of course, but it does feel more and more relaxed through the weekend. There are people who obviously come for the first time and might feel a little bit sort of out of it on the Friday night because they may be the only one there that doesn't know everyone else, but that very quickly dissolves. I think the board games help with that. We play silly board games. We play a brilliant one called the Hat Game, which just has everyone in hysterics. So I think having the informality of it, particularly in a residential setting rather than in work, it's important because it's an investment in yourself, which makes you more resilient at work, but you have to be comfortable to let your guard down and actually, engage in the whole process.
It's lovely to end on an escape room or something similar where we have a bit of fun, and it's still teamwork in these kind of activities, but it's a great way to end the weekend. So if anyone's listening, kind of thinking, how do I set this up in my area? What would you recommend? Where would you start?
I think probably the most important ingredient is getting the right people in the room. I don't publicise this as an open invite. It is by invite only, and that's because I want to make sure it's a safe space, that the people who are coming feel comfortable with each other, that they've got something to offer the group. So that's the first thing. You don't have to start it if you wanted to do it yourself. You don't have to start it as a whole weekend. It's a lot asking people to come away for the whole weekend. And I do get that, especially when it's like the end of the working week and, you get to Friday and all you want to do is go home and be with your family and chill out. But we're then asking you to come and invest in a weekend of work. So it is a lot to ask. So maybe start with just the Saturday and build on it from there. You do need to be quite organised. And I have to say that's not something that comes naturally to me. I've learned how to be organised over the years, but I'm still not that good at it. And I have to say sometimes I'm, hopelessly disorganised with things, but I'm also quite chill. So things tend to fall in place in the end. So it usually works out fine. There's a lot to think about for a weekend. So, if you're doing a residential, maybe just start with one night. You could start in a hotel. It is a bit easier if you start in a hotel because you don't have to remember to bring breakfast and the tea bags and all the other things that you might need. It's worth having the kind of corporate supplies for the Saturday daytime. So whether that's a flip chart or a projector or even down to like post-it notes, pens and paper, you wouldn't normally get those in a house, whereas you might get them in a hotel. So again, it's having a list like that to bring. The way we run it, the cost of it includes breakfast and lunch, and then the people who come pay for the dinner themselves and obviously any escape room, that sort of thing. We actually did homemade pizzas today, which was quite good fun. We were very lucky with the weather, so we managed to get the pizza oven outside, and you spend a lot of the Saturday sort of sat down talking and being inside. It was quite nice to kind of go for a little wander at lunchtime. It's beautiful scenery around here, so that really helped. So there is quite a lot to remember and get organised, but I think if you start smaller and actually have everyone chip in. So I used to do it all myself at the beginning, and then I found it was just quite overwhelming. So, now one of the other delegates will get the shopping in, for example. One of them might organise the restaurant, or, you delegate different things to different people. And like I said, you delegate some of the subjects to different people and ask them for ideas. They're the valuable resource, the people who are there with you. So it's quite a lot to organise, but it's really, really rewarding, so it's worth it.
You talked about that rewarding aspect then. Do you see what do people kind of take away from the weekend, going back to their practices, either immediately or kind of long term? How do you feel, either personally or just some kind of examples that you've come across over the years?
I'm sure other people would give you lots more ideas than this, but me personally, it reminds me of the really good bits of this job. It can be quite isolating sometimes. I'm lucky in my practice that I have a really good team around me as the senior management team, so I don't feel quite so isolated. It's often, you're stuck in the middle between partners and staff, and you're never quite the friend of either party, but I'm lucky I've got that in my practice. But I think if you're coming on this weekend as someone who is the only practice manager in the practice, it helps you realise that you're not alone in the job, that other people are finding it just as tough as you. There's some kind of really hard skills that you can take away. One of the things we talked about today, for example, was the Eisenhower matrix and being able to prioritise some of the tasks that stress you out. what should you get on with doing? What should you delegate? What should you actually bin off and give to, actually either give to someone else or not do at all? What's important? What's best use of your time? There's always some hard skills like that. There's, with things like CQC talks, although I've got this theoretical knowledge of what CQC do and how they do their inspections and what you need to do as a practice, it's invaluable hearing it from someone who's actually been there, and you can actually ask them, what about this? What about that? How did you find that? What was most stressful about this? So those sorts of things are really good. It's about sharing different ways of doing things, or the talk we had about pharmacy, working with drug companies. Ed, who did the talk's very knowledgeable about dispensing and all of those sorts of things, and education with the drug reps. And it kind of puts things in a different light for you, different opportunities that you maybe haven't thought about, different ways to make money for the practice, different ways to be able to provide things in the practice, because it's not all about bringing the profit in. Sometimes it's about doing some quality things in the practice. We've spoken before about research in practice, or there's all sorts that has come up, and it's from people who have lived experience of the job. No practice manager job is the same from one practice to the other. No practice works in the same ways. So being able to understand it from the point of view of other people's been, probably the best bit of this. And certainly for myself, I always go away from these weekends feeling so much more positive. It's a resilience weekend, and that's what I come away with. I feel more resilient. I love my job again.
Thank you, Jenny. That's wonderful to hear. And it's great to hear the positivity shine through, and it kind of helps build on that, the practice management community kind of looking after itself and working together to strengthen the connections and build the resilience. So thank you, Jenny, once again for joining us for this special episode. And thanks as well for Dean Healthcare again for helping sponsor the weekend. If you're thinking about setting this up, we'll share some details for Jenny and LPM in the show notes, as well as the resources we've talked about today. If you need help, do reach out and get in touch. It'd be great to see these kind of events happen more across the country. Until then, hope you have a good week, and we'll see you next time at the Halfway Point.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of The Halfway Point. We hope today's conversations have given you a fresh inspiration and practical ideas you can take straight back into your practice. You'll find all the links and resources we mentioned in the show notes at locampm.co.uk. The Halfway Point is available on all major podcast platforms in both audio and video formats, so you can tune in however suits you best. If this episode helps you, we would generally love to hear from you. Leave us a review or a comment. Not only does it make our day, it also helps us shape future episodes around what matters most to you. Make sure you follow and subscribe so you do not miss next Wednesday's episode. And if you know a colleague who would benefit from this conversation, please share this episode with them. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn and Facebook by searching for the Locum Practice Manager. We're on YouTube too, where we share practical tips and tutorials for primary care managers. Until next time, keep moving forward, keep improving, and we'll see you again next week at the Halfway Point. Following the success of LPM's very first New to Practice Manager conference, we are bringing them back with dates right across the country. This year, we're heading to Hull, Salisbury, Newcastle and Preston. And the best part, it is completely free to attend. If you're new to the practice manager role and feeling like everyone else has the manual except you are not alone. These conferences are relaxed, practical and honest. Real conversations, useful learning and tools you can take straight back to your practice. You'll also meet trusted industry partners, leaders in their own field who are there to support you and help you grow with confidence. You will leave clearer, better connected and ready to lead. Head to locampm.co.uk to book your free place and follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook to stay up to date. We would love to see you there.